Hi, I'm Tara, and welcome to Let's Do Books. Email me at tara@thelesbianreview.com with any questions or comments, or come join our Facebook group, the Lesbian Review Book Club. I am thrilled because today I'm joined by KD Williamson, who I am a huge fan of. Her latest in the Cops and Docs series is called Drawing the Line. It's currently available on the ILVA website. It's going to be everywhere soon, and if you haven't read the other books, get on that because you're going to want to do that. So welcome, KD.
Yay! Hello!
So, you're here today to talk about your journey as a Lesfic reader. Where did that all begin?
It started when I was in college, actually, and I was working on my first degree. I was actually working on a degree in literature, and I was working in the school library, and I had just started watching Xena. I just found it like at 2:00 one morning, and I was like, "Oh, what the fuck is this?" So I was like, "Okay," and I couldn't find any like records of when it came on. So I was at work one night, and I said, "Well, just let me look it up. Maybe I can get a TV schedule." So I looked, and I saw this fan fiction thing, and I was like, "What is that?" So I clicked on it, and I think it took me to Lunacy's site. You ever heard of her?
No.
She has this big, like, she keeps, like, all these records of, like, the best Xena fan fiction. She has some Voyager fanfic, too. I don't know if the site is still up, but back in the day when Xena was a huge thing, she used to keep all that stuff in check, and she used to do reviews and all that stuff. So it took me there, and I was like, what? Okay, so I clicked on it, and I was reading, and I was like, oh my God. I was like, oh my God. And at that point, I had no idea that I was a lesbian. None whatsoever. I probably had an inkling, maybe a little bit, but I want to say this was around, how old was I? My God, how old was I? Maybe 21, 22, somewhere around there. Somewhere around 22, 23. So I was like, okay, I clicked on it, and I started reading and reading, and I was like, and then there was a kiss, and then I was like, oh my God. And then a customer came, and I was like, oh, please don't bother me right now. So I tended to tended to the students and everything, and I came back, and I ended up my whole shift just about. I was reading voraciously. I mean, it was just like, I cannot believe I'm reading this, but I'm really liking it. I'm really, really liking it. So I wrote down some websites and, all that good stuff to take with me, because back in that time, we're talking about the 90s, or, like the, late 90s, something like that. And so, a lot of the stuff we have around now, technology wise, we didn't have then. I didn't have a cell phone or any of this stuff. So I wrote everything down, and we had a computer lab on campus. And so I started going to the computer lab to read. And the more I read, I guess you could say it was kind of an awakening, so to speak. And I started printing like my favorite stories out and everything, and it just kind of went from there, and I decided at that point, I was like, I was a pretty good writer in high school, maybe I could try to write some of this stuff. I kind of dabbled a little bit, and actually some of my stuff is still on the internet, I do believe, under Minerva. But yeah, I still get it's somewhere floating around on the internet. I'm embarrassed about it. It's probably not that good now that I've looked back 20 years ago compared to how I write now. But it's still on the internet, I do believe, on various websites. But I was getting a few emails, saying like, oh, your basis, oh, that was hot, or I like the way you write them, or, something like that. And I was like, okay. And I think I only had like maybe like really, really short stories, like maybe a couple of thousand words or something like that. And so, in all that time, I was still reading, everybody's stuff that I could get my hands on, whether it was good or bad. There's a lot of bad stuff, but you read it anyway, just because. And then, I think I want to say around that time, Buffy fanfic started becoming like a big thing. You know, whether it was Buffy and Faith or Buffy and Willow or Willow and Tara, you know, anything like that. So it's just like, so I found that and I kind of threw that on the pile and I was reading that too. So it's just like I was going back and forth, back and forth. And I had like this whole list of websites I could go to at any time. You know, I'm really surprised my grades did not suffer. Because how much I mean, when I say I was working like 3 part-time jobs.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and so the computer lab was open, you know, 24/7. So, like, when I got off work, you know, at night or something, if I didn't have a lot to study, I would go to the computer lab and I would be there for hours because, you know, I was poor. And I didn't have my own computer or laptop or whatever. So I was like, okay, I'm going to do, you know, what I need to do to get my fix, so to speak. You know, and I even I even dabbled in Buffy fanfic a little bit, but I don't even think I think I wrote like one story, and that's circulating around somewhere too. So you know, but then you know it's just like you know, then there was Voyager fanfic. It was just like anything, you know, subtext or non-subtext. You know that you know Xena was the one that had the subtext on screen, and of course Buffy had the actual relationship between Willow and Tara. But, you know, so anything, you know, and Voyager, you know, that's a whole nother story there. We just kind of created that out of thin air. But anyway, it was still really good fiction. So I went from there and I just kept reading and, you know, it seems like just when things start getting good, all those shows get canceled. I don't understand that. That really pisses me off. Even after the shows were canceled, you know, Xena fanfic was still a big deal. Buffy fanfic was still a big deal. Voyager fanfic was still a huge deal. You know, and a lot of the great writers, you know, Lesfic writers we have around are some people who started in those fandoms. And then after all that, trying to find new stuff to read, because I swear to God, I probably read just about everything that there was and reread just about everything that there was, you know, long stories, short stories, what, you know, whatever. And around that, you know, after I had probably exhausted everything I could possibly read, Rizzoli and Isles came along. And yeah, and for some reason that one caught me more so than I would say Xena fanfic did. I'm not sure why as of yet, and that's something I have yet to sit down and analyze. I think because Jane was so much of an asshole, and I identified more with her, and I was like, you know, I could write that. I could totally write that, you know, and probably expand on that a little bit, you know. So I started, and there are some really, really good fanfics, you know, out there with in the Rizzles universe and the fandom, you know. So, I mean, some really good stuff. So I started reading a lot of that, and, you know, all these live journal entries popped up, these groups, you know, popped up that collected like the best fanfic from Rizzoli and Isles fandom, you know, and so it was just like I joined all those and I was reading all that, you know, like I said, the good and the bad stuff, and like I said before, there was some very, very good stuff for some talented people, you know, and I would read them like, why the fuck is this person wasting their time writing fanfic? I'm just like, you know, and I still say that today, and I understand because I wrote it before. I understand what you get out of it. It's a creative outlet, you know, it makes you feel good or whatever. But I'm like, when you're that good and you're doing that for free, it's not like you're going to be a millionaire writing Lesfic, but still, I mean, you know, you can have, you know, you can have your 5 minutes of fame or whatever in a bigger audience, so to speak,
and a very passionate audience.
Yes, exactly. And I've kind of I still read fanfic, you know, now in between books and stuff like that, because I find that it's easier to fall into that rather than reading actual novels, because I'm so afraid of like bleed through. So
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, that sounds like a good idea. And next thing I know, I could be typing it. And, it's just like, no.
Yeah.
So I'm just like, so I stick with fanfic while I'm writing, which seems to be, that's all I'm doing lately. So it's just like, oh, and I'm not complaining, mind you, there's some very good stuff out there.
Mm-hmm.
So, but yeah, I just got my starting fanfic, as I said before, I went from Xena to Buffy to Rizzoli and Isles, and I had this huge fanfic called Blurred Lines that I worked on for 2 years. And I think I had a huge block for like 6 months. I had no idea where the story was going to go, no idea what I was doing with it, and it just kind of came to me one day, and I started writing on it again. But I mean, it was just huge, and I was just like putting everything I thought would fit and that I would like to read in it, so, and I kind of when I got done with it, I was so proud of myself and so happy. I was like, my God, it was like, now this is a bad analogy, but I'm going to say it anyway. Okay. It was like having a baby.
That's not a bad analogy. That took a lot longer than it takes to have a baby. And that was a Rizzoli and Isles story, right?
It was, yeah. And it was just like, but I get like a bunch of feedback, of people going, oh, this was a Rizzoli and Isles story. And I was like, well, if you don't know that by now, that's not news and that's not a secret. After, and I joke with Jove about this now, when we talk occasionally, I joke about this, that I rewrote it like 20 times to get it to where it is now. But yeah, it was just like I finished it, and it was like a labor of love, and it was like my baby. Just look at my baby, And
yeah.
And I would just sit back and just read the feedback and respond to it, and all that stuff. And I was on Facebook, or I was Facebook adjacent, I guess you could say. I was like kind of walking around my office or whatever, and I get this message, and I'm like, so I came back and I'm leaning on the computer and I'm looking, and it's from somebody called Astrid something or other. I was like, who the fuck is this? And she's like, oh, I read your fanfic Blurred Lines, and I have a publishing company, and I really think that it's well written, it's entertaining, the dialogue is great, and I think it's very, once we clean it up, I think it'll be very publishable. And I was like, is this a joke? And I asked her, I said, is this a joke? I was like, are you just trying to fuck with me or something? And she says no. She says, I'm really not. And so she gave me her website, and I went and checked it out because I did not believe her at all. I was just like, this is a scam, because it's Facebook and people are always trying to scam somebody.
Right.
So I was like, so I went to the website and I was looking around. I was like, oh, I said, she may be legit. I was like, okay. So I said, all right, what do I have to do? I said, first I said, okay. Then I said, hold on. I said, my wife, who's my current wife, was not my wife then. She was just my girlfriend. And I was like, well, let me talk to my partner about it, and see what she has to say. And I asked her about it, and she said the same thing. She said, for real? I was like, yeah. She was like, well, why won't you should jump on that. So I responded to Astrid, and the rest is kind of history. We started going through the editing process, and after a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, Blurred Lines was born. Kelley and Nora, came out of that. Whatever iterations, the 25th iteration of of the original work.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, and even when I was editing and, doing the rewrites for that, I was still reading. I still read to this. I'm working on something currently. And, I was just the other day reading Supergirl fanfic. And it's just like, it's an addiction. I'm telling you, it really and truly is. It's just like, oh, it's just, let me see what new stuff is out there. Let's see who's written what, and all that stuff. And I even went back. What's this? September? This is September. I think, and I remember talking to you not too long ago about being in the mood to read Truth and Measure.
Oh my God.
So I did that for the upteenth time. I swear I knocked it out in like 3 or 4 days.
Yeah.
I think, it was just like, even though I have read it so many times, it's just like once you get into it, you don't want to stop. It's almost like you find something new every time you read it. And it's just like, in between clients, I had my phone or my Kindle, and I was like sitting in my car eating lunch, reading, and everything. And I got to the end, and I was like, wow, this is just the best fucking thing ever. And I'm so excited about it becoming, a novel. I was just like, oh my God, I can't wait to see what she does with it.
I know. Like, I'm excited, but also at the same time, like, where else can she take it? She's such a talented writer.
I know.
What else can she do with it? I don't know if you heard, there's a few episodes back from when this was recorded, I have an episode of this show up with her, Roslins and Claire, aka Telanu, where she recommends 5 other. We just talk about Devil Wears Prada fandom, because it's still thriving.
It is.
Like, it's been 12 or 13 years. It is booming. So I just wanted to talk to, who better to talk to than Telanu, and just say, like, what is it about this movie? And she gives 5 other Devil Wears Prada fanfic recommendations.
Oh my God. Really? I'm going to have to find that. I really, I'm going to have to listen to that, because I love finding new stuff. I mean, I'm always looking for something, but I'm just, and I'm not down in any fanfic writers out there. I really am not. You're very brave for putting yourself out there, but it's just like, in the interest of time, I don't like weeding through a lot of stuff. So it's just like, if I know what's really good and what's going to catch me right away, I gravitate toward that first, because I just, it's just like, I may have a couple of days here and there, where I can sit down and where I'm taking a break or whatever.
So what are the fandoms that you're excited about right now?
I was very, very much into Once Upon a Time. At one period in time, oh my God, that shit was better than the actual show. But that whole show was a shit. I know you don't watch it though. You never watched it.
No, I was interested in it, and then I heard about all the queer baiting.
Yes.
And decided not to bother.
Yes, I kind of stopped watching it because of that. But and I was like, oh my God, the fanfic is so much better than the shit. The crap they give us on the show. I mean, so it's just like, I was like heavily into that. And then I kind of, sort of started leaning towards Supergirl fanfic as well. Kat and Kara, and Kara and Lena, Maggie and Alex. Although the Maggie Alex fanfic is a little bit too sweet for me.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's just like, I like a little grit, with my stuff. And if it gets over the top, kind of. So, or that may just be me being used to a certain thing, from my own writing, or, or the novels I've been able to read and not seeing it, you know what I mean? So it's just like, but I like a little gravitas to it, more so than the sweet, sweet kissing and, and the cute. I gotta have more than that, and some of the Supergirl fanfic, they do offer that. So the stuff by Victorium, Lola, as you know her.
Oh yeah. Oh my God.
Yeah.
For anybody who wants to check her out, look up Victorium. Her fanfic is all great, but one of them was an AU story that was turned into a full-length novel called The Music in the Mirror, and it's so good.
It is. And I read the fanfic. I've not read the actual novel yet. I read the fanfic when it first started, and I was following along with it.
Mm-hmm.
And Lee would, Lee told me, she was like, "Oh, she signed with Ilva," and I was like, "Oh my God, she's doing the book." But yeah, I want to see what she did with that, because the fanfic was already very good. At first, when I first started reading it, I was like, ballet. I was like, really? I don't know if I'll like that, And it's just like, and I just sort of kind of fell into it, and I kept wanting to know what was going to happen. And then it was a slow burn, because I didn't feel the chemistry between them at first, And
No,
then
there was none.
No, and it just kind of snuck up on you. And I was like, oh, there it is right there. And it's just like, from that point on, it was just like, okay, she needs to hurry up and do an update, so we can have something new about what's going on. But yeah, I love the dialogue was just on point, and dialogue is like my bread and butter. I love great dialogue. To me, that makes the book.
Mm-hmm.
Now, it doesn't have to be sassy or snazzy or whatever, or snarky or anything like that. It just has to be authentic.
Yes.
So I like authentic dialogue. I want the people I'm reading about to sound like people. So, and she does an excellent job with that. So, but I love that. Yeah.
I'll say that book, like the published version, is one of my top books of the year.
Oh, see, you really have me wanting to read it now. See, when I take a break, I'm hoping that I'll be finished editing or whatnot by the end of October. So then I'll have a break where I can just get caught up on a lot of stuff I've been wanting to read, and actual novels. So I'll add that to the list. I have stuff from Lise Mateague here, that she mailed me. I have all her books that I really want to get into. I have like a shitload of ebooks, that I've not even cracked, so it's just like, I've been lucky to be like a sensitivity reader on some stuff. So I've been like Lee Winter's Shattered. I got to read that, Party Wall. I read that one.
Yeah.
Yes. I mean, so
good.
I get to, little tidbits here and there, but for the most part, I've not had time to really get back and see what's out there. I think the last new book I read was, it was Party Wall, I think. And before that, there was Shattered. And before that, I read the first in the Soho series.
Oh, Melissa Brayden.
Yeah, and I love her dialogue.
That's one of my favorite books. So she has a new series. The last book is just coming out. Well, by the time this podcast goes up, it'll be out. But when we're recording right now, it's just about to be kind of available everywhere. And it takes place, they're kind of like beach reads. They take place in California, down at like Venice Beach. And I love them. So the first pairing is a writer on a family drama and the showrunner falling for each other.
Oh,
yes. And then the second one is a woman who runs a coffee shop, and then this other woman who's like a firefighter from out of town comes in to like chill out for a while, and they get together. And then the third one is like the top two female professional surfers in the world, and it's all tied because one of the women from each story live in the same apartment complex and are really good friends.
Oh,
yeah. So it's kind of like similar to the Soho Loft series, you get the individual romances, but you also get the friendship writing that's so good.
Yeah, okay. I might have to check. I'll just add them to my list.
Add them to your list. Also, I heard that one of your favorite Lesfic authors, Little Bird told me you love Meghan O'Brien. Meghan O'Brien has a new book coming out called The Sex Therapist Next Door.
Oh, shut the fuck up.
Yes. I'm very excited about this one.
Oh, have you heard anything about it?
There's a blurb up for it. Let me find it for you.
Okay. Oh, I'm excited about that. Yes, I do love her.
So neither of us have read this book, but I'm going to read the blurb out for you because everybody is probably going to want to check out this book.
Uh-huh.
So it says, Diana Kelley is a couples sex therapist with a problem. It's her job to convince her clients of the importance of sexual and emotional intimacy, but after surviving a toxic relationship with an abusive ex, she's sworn off love and can't fathom ever making herself vulnerable again. When her best friend Ava is injured the night she's scheduled to assist with a hands-on sexual education workshop, Diana is forced to find a short-term replacement. The last thing she wants is a new lover, even a paid one. After a year of living in the apartment next door, all Jude Monaco knows about her neighbor Diana is that she's a gorgeous older woman and the inspiration for more dirty fantasies than she cares to admit.
It's an older woman?
Yeah.
Oh, so that's like catnip. Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry, I'm interrupting. Go ahead.
No, that's okay. So when Diana knocks on her door with a shockingly delicious favor to ask, Jude seizes the opportunity to learn more. Their professional relationship is supposed to be a clinical erotic arrangement between a sex therapist and her assistant. But at the intersection of sex and intimacy, anything is possible, even love. Yes, it's an age gap erotic romance.
Oh, I got all tingly just now.
Yeah, right?
I love the age gap stuff. Oh, for whatever reason, it's just like the best thing ever.
I know. It's my favorite too. So, everybody who's listening to this, by the time this episode is out, this book will be available everywhere. You're probably going to want to check it out. You're probably going to see me freaking out about it on social media.
Oh, and I cannot wait for the audiobook.
Oh, I hope they get Abby Craden to
Me
do
too.
it.
Me too. Oh my gosh. Or anybody that has a nice voice that can do that. Because I'm still stuck on Wild. To me, that was the best read.
Yeah.
Of all her books, that one was the best read. You know.
That one's really interesting too because it's a thriller.
Uh-huh.
It's a paranormal romance.
Uh-huh.
And it is an erotic romance.
Uh-huh. It is.
It has it all.
Yeah.
I hope she writes another one.
I know, and it was so. Oh my God, Terry! Now I feel like I should listen to it soon.
Just listen to it again.
I know. It's just like I'm in the
Do
car.
it.
I will. It's like I'll be in the car at a stoplight, and you know how it gets to the good parts, and you have this look on your face, and I can just imagine what I look like at a stoplight when people like turn over to look. It's just like, oh, it's just so good. Oh my God.
Did you ever try listening to The Night Off?
Yes.
I made the mistake of trying to listen to that on the train.
It's not something you should listen to in the company of other people.
No, I learned that lesson very, very well.
Yeah, it's definitely not, and it can't be somewhere where somebody can walk in on you and you're like, when you're like hearing something, you go like, oh my God, it's like, what are you listening to? Nothing. It's okay. Yeah.
Nothing.
It's
that's right.
Yeah.
Whew.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I mean, we've talked about this before kind of in our own conversations that you love Meghan O'Brien. Are there any other authors whose writing you're really excited about?
Yeah, I want to read Lee's books. After reading Shattered, I want to say I have all of them on an ebook. And they're just sitting there waiting for me. And I started on The Brutal Truth. And I wasn't able, and I wanted to like dive right into it, but then the writing bug got back to me, and so then I had to put it aside. So I want to go back and really get into that one because I know that's an age gap romance.
It is. Well, you know what else is an age gap romance?
What?
The Red Files and Under Your Skin.
Oh yeah. I got those too.
Well, they're not strictly romance, to be fair. I know she calls them mystery, but like they fit pretty firmly in the romantic suspense category. So if you like a little bit of suspense to your romance,
I like anything with my romance, or I just like, or I'll just like something good. Period. I mean, it doesn't even have to be romance. I mean, as long as it's good and pulls me in, I'll read just about anything. So,
well, did you read Requiem?
No, I haven't read that one either.
Oh.
Dude, when I tell you that I have been constantly writing, I am not kidding you. It's just like I've gone from one project to maybe a month hiatus and went on to another one. So I'm hoping, when I get done with this one, I have some ideas for my next book, but I'm going to sit on them and see if they develop, because I'm tired and I don't want to end up, writing. I want to be able to flesh everything out like I want to. I don't want to be a cookie cutter writer, and and then for people to go like, oh, but isn't that the same thing she's been writing? I mean, so I want to be able to do that, but I do have some ideas, but I'm going to sit on them for a little while and just kind of relax and recharge and everything, before I kind of put those ideas to paper, so to speak. Now, if the voices become too loud, I might have to, like, put the kibosh on the vacation. We'll have to see. Because sometimes that happens. It happened it happened with this book that I'm working on now. I didn't think I was gonna be writing for a little while. I really didn't, and it's just like, okay, oh, this could be interesting. Okay, and I can't say much about what I'm working on now, but it's different from. I would say it's different from what I've written before.
Okay.
So, and it's been enjoyable thus far. It's I'll say this much. It's the first time I've written a book where both characters are likable from the get-go. So that's different from me. It's usually it's usually, this character is one character is like struggling with something, and they're a bit of standoffish or asshole-ish, or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
And or both of them are. So
yeah.
But with this one, it's kind of like, well, I like them. I don't know how, and my beta readers, like them. So, as opposed to, oh, Kim, you have to lighten up on, that's just too much angst. I was like, that's angst? I'm like, you think that's angst?
Oh, so, you definitely write a lot of angst in your books.
Well, see, my opinion of angst and other people's opinion of angst is not the same thing. When I think of angst, I think of people like dying and people crying and, and all this stuff, so to me.
How about what you did to Kelley and Nora in the second book?
What about them?
That's angst.
That was them growing.
That they were growing through angst.
Well, then you're probably going to consider drawing the line as a lot of angst then, compared to that. Because it's fairly intense. It's fairly intense. So
I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, it's interesting. I would say it's one of my most intensely emotional books that I've read. Yeah, and Pink was. I think it's up there with Pink.
Okay.
Emotionally, for the emotions that flow through, not the subject matter, so to speak, but just the emotions that are on the page. You know, it's a second chance romance. And it deals with heartbreak, the aftermath of heartbreak and stuff. So it's similar in Pink in that way.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's
Okay.
But yeah, I'm looking forward to reading a lot of things right now, in the next month or so. Well, after the next month or so.
Yeah. So, is there anything else that you would want to share with people about your journey as a reader?
Well, I think my journey as a reader and, how it kind of juxtaposed with my journey as a writer. One of the best things I think that'll come out of it is that I've befriended a lot of the fanfic writers I like to read.
Mm-hmm.
I like being able to, correspond with them and be like, hey, in fact, I have one of them. This is actually a beta for me, so it's that's like
so cool.
Yeah, I know. It's just like, it would be nice if I got a heads up on all the fiction, and all this stuff. But it's kind of cool to be able to talk to them and get to know them a little bit and see the mystery behind the fiction, and all that stuff. But I think that's one of the best parts. Besides reading it, is knowing the person that it came from, so that's one of my favorite parts. But
great.
Yeah, so but I think that's about it.
So where can people find you online if they want to connect with you?
I am on Facebook. I am on Twitter and you would ask me that, and good thing I'm at a computer. It's I'm on Facebook at KD Williamson dash author, and I'm on Twitter under Rizzles Lover 72. You can't miss me. I'm fairly prolific on Twitter, more so than I am on Facebook. But and I have my own website too. It's kdwilliamson.org.
That is all for this episode. Thank you so much for joining me.
Oh, it's been a hoot.
So, I'm Tara. You've been listening to Let's Do Books. Remember to email me at tara@thelesbianreview.com with your questions or comments. If you're an author who's interested in joining me on the show to talk about the lesfic you love or trends that have you interested, please let me know. If you've enjoyed this episode, please check out the show notes where you'll find a Patreon link for the Lesbian Talk Show. Patrons get access to exclusive content like bonus podcasts with authors or some of the other reviewers that no one else gets access to. You can also join our Facebook group, the Lesbian Review Book Club, to talk about these books and anything else that you've been reading and loving. To find this and many other great shows, all you need to do is search for the Lesbian Talk Show on iTunes, Podbean, or Stitcher.